NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that you can stay close to your team even if you don't live in their town. Like, maybe you're a Raven who married a Seahawk who got a job in the land of the Falcons. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you can watch your team's out-of-market Sunday afternoon games no matter where you live, because you shouldn't have to change teams even if you change towns. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
Hello and welcome to the Sports by Northwest podcast. I am Oregonian sports columnist Bill Oram. My guest this week, this is a good one, is senior NBA reporter for ESPN's Andscape, Marc Spears, who you may have seen had a sit-down interview with Damian Lillard last week, which, of course, is why he's joining us on the podcast this week, having nothing to do with the fact that his alma mater, San Jose State, is hosting Oregon State in the season opener for the Beavers this weekend. He's pointing at the logo on his shirt. Marc, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Man, I'm happy for you, brother. My biggest dream as a journalist was to be a columnist initially, and there was a time at the Denver Post and the Boston Globe where perhaps I'd end up being a columnist instead of continuing to be an NBA reporter. And both times it was denied, but it all worked out. But I think it's beautiful for you to be able to go home and do what you do, and because that's your heart, right? Like, you know it, and you bleed it. And so I don't think you wake up any day where it's boring. You know, this is something that's true to your heart, man. So I'm glad that you were able to, like, get out of the bright lights of the Lakers, so to speak, right, and go home, man. So when I heard that, I think I sent you a note. I was like, "Yo, man, that's dope. Congratulations."
I appreciate that, man. It's been a lot of fun. Get to have conversations like this one. And you talked about you potentially doing something else at some point. Your career kind of speaks for itself. And, for those who don't know, you've covered, 20 NBA finals at this point, been covering the NBA for a couple of decades. You mentioned the Denver Post, the Boston Globe. This year, Marc, before we get to the Damian Lillard conversation, I just have to acknowledge that you were bestowed with the highest honor an NBA reporter can receive, the Kurt Gowdy Award from the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. So applaud you for that. Joining some of the real luminaries of our business. Let me just ask you, before we get to the Dame conversation and to some of the other cool stuff you're doing right now, who was the first person you called when you got the call from the Hall of Fame?
I think I called my wife first.
Did you
slow
play it, or did you?
No, because I think she was I said, well, I got the call, and she let me step out the room. As you get that voice, so she stepped outside, and then I called my mom, and I don't think my mom really understood. She understands now, right? But the beautiful thing about the ceremony was I got to highlight her and my dad, my dad has ALS, so he couldn't be there. And shout out to my sister for going to New Orleans and being there so he could, be cared for and watch it on her iPad, right? But they know now. And so it's, I actually was filming a Conversations project in New York, and I was in my office when I got the call. So that was, man. And it was like, all right, we got to film the next scene. So I couldn't tell anybody. So the only person I told were actually the two hosts of the show, Elaine Welteroth, and I don't think Elaine really understood either, but David Lawrence did, man. And we like both had a moment, and I was like, all right, you got to go film. So, I think we both celebrated that night.
Well, in the Conversations project, we're going to talk more about, but is a project you're doing with those two. It's on Hulu via Andscape, where you and other really incredible and thoughtful and intelligent Black leaders get together and talk about culture and race and politics and religion. There's 6 episodes or 6 parts streaming right now on Hulu, but I mean, a really cool project you're doing too, which is totally a step out of the NBA and some of the stuff that we know you for, going crazy for San Jose State, when they beat when they beat Arkansas. But I really want to talk to you. We're going to talk about all this. We're going to get into all of it. But the Damian Lillard conversation.
Yeah, we got a lot, brother. We got a lot. But I know what Portland wants.
We have not heard Damian Lillard in his own words very much this summer, right? I mean, actually, I take that back. We've heard a lot of Dame in his own words. We've heard Dame through his music. We've seen Dame on Twitter. But this has been maybe the most, pivotal summer the Blazers have had in the last quarter of a century, with the idea of moving on from Damian Lillard and him finally putting in that trade request. What to you was the biggest takeaway of your time with him?
I feel like probably you and the state of Oregon and Blazers fans in Portland probably really read the whole piece, right? You know how it gets conjugated across social media, and all they care about is the fact that the two main questions he said no to, but if there was so many read between the line things that he talked about in terms of wanting to win a championship now, loyalty versus taking care of himself, the advice he's been given to be patient, and eventually everything's going to come your way. I think he was saying a lot of things without saying a lot of things, and then also he talked about how much he loved Portland. How important that city is to him, and that people are giving him love. And the thing I think that's so unique about Dame's situation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is I think the city understands. It's not like when look, my mom, as I mentioned, and dad live in New Orleans. They despise, respectfully, Anthony Davis in New Orleans, right?
Right.
I remember the last hurricane that came through, I went and checked on them. I went in a convenience store. Everything was gone except these ruffles with Anthony Davis on it. They didn't care that it was, I don't care how lacking in food we are, we're not going to eat the Anthony Davis ruffles, man. I don't feel like it. The David Lillard Gatorade is not going to get off the shelves because of this, right? In Portland, there's respect and love for him, and I think for the Blazers, you're certainly in a tough position because there's only one team. But the NBA at large respects him so much that nobody's going to test that. They're going to basically give him what he wants. This isn't like James Harden where, you're lighting fires everywhere you want to go. I mean, every time you want to go. Damian Lillard's being professional about it. He's beloved. He's top 75 player. And I'm sure it would certainly be easier if he added a couple teams. But I know I've been told that he the Heat culture, and I think, Bill, this about him, that's kind of his style. Sure. He's kind of got that kind of military basketball mentality. He wants to work. Also the stability of the organization, the winning, they've been to the finals, 7 times since 2006. Mm-hmm. Obviously Bam and Jimmy help. No state tax helps. The sunshine helps. And I think at 33 years old, he looks at the landscape of the West and is like, I think my chances are better to go out east. And if Miami's able to make the finals without somebody like myself, what can they do with me? So you don't make that move unless it's certainly a calculated risk. And I know that Jason Tatum's called him, tried to get in his ear. But his focus is definitely on Miami.
You mentioned the aggregators, and the thing that people picked up on from your conversation was Dame saying, I don't want to speak on Portland, or I'm not going to speak on Portland. And I think...
Which is all fine related.
Right. I guess... Well, why would you? And there was, I think, a quick reaction on Twitter or X, whatever it is, that was somehow a shot at Portland, and I took it the other way. Like,
not
Damian
in the least.
is not
That's
going
quite the opposite to me.
Damian's not going to say anything negative about Portland. It was, to me, that was respect. So you agree with that?
No, that was respect, and I don't want to get fined.
Yeah.
But even in one of the quotes, he said it was like positive towards Portland. It was like respectful towards Portland. And then he said, I love Portland and I'm going to live here. Like, he plans on living there. You're going to, and sometimes with these things, right, you got to look long term. Look at Minnesota with Kevin Garnett. No relationship. It's sad. Like, you walk into their games there and KG's not in the rafters because he doesn't want to be in the rafters. You know how embarrassing it is for their franchise that he's in the rafters at Boston, but he's not in the rafters in Minnesota. There's no 21 up in Minnesota. Yeah, like the Melo thing. Keep an eye on like Carmelo Anthony in Denver next year. Like, but I actually thought the finals would have been an amazing place for Denver to like just have Melo come out in the beginning and put his hand up and heal. But they didn't pick him to do it then. They say they're going to, oh yeah, next season we're going to do some things. And I believe Denver will next season, but I thought the finals would have been a perfect moment. But instead it was Issel, David Thompson, and Alex English, understandably so. But what certainly that, I mean, if you brought him out during the finals, I think that would have been, it's been venomous there with him in Denver, but it didn't have to be on both sides. Like, I remember when Melo came back for the first time and he's playing for the Knicks, instead of doing a Melo tribute, which I always say teams should be the bigger person and do that. They did here's our former Nuggets playing for the Knicks. It's Marcus Camby. It's J.R. Smith. It's Carmelo. Like it was really wrong, man. You know what I mean? And so I just think that the difference with Portland, too, is like Melo ain't going to live in Denver. KG ain't going to live in Minneapolis. But Dame is going to be in Portland. I do see a time when he's retired with his kids sitting courtside the same way you saw Kobe Bryant sitting courtside with Gigi, right? Like,
yeah,
I can see that in Portland, and that's a beautiful visual for a franchise that could speak testaments about the franchise. So I think the Blazer organization has to keep that in mind now. Like, you think so much about the present, but you need to think about the long-term effects that have. And, you know, oh, well, we have a change in ownership now. We feel different. You know.
You know, and it's interesting because Portland hasn't had the greatest track record with its departing superstars in terms of of
like,
those
do you
relationships.
See him? Where's Clyde? Where's Bill?
Clyde's in Houston. Bill comes to things, but Mark, I don't know if you watched the 30 for 30 on Bill Walton this summer, The Luckiest Guy Alive.
I need to. That's
was
on my list.
Outstanding. And I was late to it. I only watched it last week. But one thing, you know, if you know the history of the late 70s Blazers with Bill Walton, you know, it was acrimonious and toxic because he was so mad at the medical staff for, for giving him, painkillers or, whatever it was that got him to play in the 78 playoffs. And so he held out at the start of the 78-79 season until he could get out of Portland. And it was acrimonious, toxic, whatever you want to call it. And it took time. Now he has been around, at major events and anniversaries and beloved.
So far removed,
though,
right? Like the younger
figure.
Generation doesn't. Yeah.
He's not here. He was never on the Blazers broadcast full time. He was on the Clippers broadcast full time with Ralph. So I mean, these things do have kind of a life cycle. But so I agree with you completely. Like, don't kill the long term relationship with Damian because he wants to have it. The Blazer fans want to have it, and what he means here. But there is also the reality from the business standpoint of how the Blazers proceed is going to dictate how much success, in large part, they have for Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, this next generation. But I'm looking at the Blazers, and there seems to be no movement on them moving toward a Miami deal. Miami has no incentive to up their offer. But what is the end game here, Mark? I don't.
Sure
as far as what I've heard, you think we're getting closer? Does he end up in Miami? Does Portland move on?
Yes.
Do they say we're gonna take the deal that is there so we can move on?
I think he ends up in Miami. I don't know. I don't understand that Tyler Herro hate. He's a hell of a shooter.
Me either.
Why wouldn't you why wouldn't you want Tyler Herro? Maybe that's coach speak or something. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, what's the kid from UCLA? Jaquez? Like, here's the thing. Like, also keep in mind, like, I love Scoot Henderson. I've spent a lot of time with Scoot Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
He is like a younger version of Dame, although he's more of a passer, but he can be a phenomenal scorer. And like,
but in terms
Dame,
of
he's
makeup,
phenomenal,
I think you mean, yeah, worker and
like
all
yeah. Like, as a person too, like, just him and his family are beautiful. Like, they're gonna love him. Dame's 33. His team is not going anywhere. Like, if you could get Herro and Jaquez and somebody's like, well, they got Simmons and Simons and, you know, and they got, so what? Add pieces. You could make other moves later, but I'm trying to get more depth, man. Like, are you convinced that everybody on that roster is better than Tyler Herro? He's pretty good, man.
on the roster. The only guy on the roster right now who I would say I'm convinced is going to be better than Tyler Herro is Scoot Henderson, and he hasn't done it yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, Ant's great, but I mean, Ant and Tyler Herro, you know, I'd kind of put him in the similar tier right now. But Tyler Herro's won at a higher level.
Really big games.
He's 6'6", you know.
Yes.
But I think that you're right. I mean,
if you could get him and Jaquez and some picks out of it, under the circumstances, I actually think it's a pretty good deal, right? You know, I do expect it to be 3 or 4 teams and maybe some people go somewhere else, but I really like Tyler Herro, man. I don't know that he'd change the course of what happened in the finals if he was healthy, but when he's on the floor, there's some shooters that are on the floor that put fear in your heart, and he's one of them. And those are hard players to find. I don't. There's a lot of guys that shoot threes. There's not a lot of guys you fear shooting threes, and I think he is one of those guys. So this Tyler Herro hate from the beginning has been really confusing to me.
Well, and I think a lot of people are like, positionally, he doesn't make sense for the Blazers, and I just don't know why that matters.
Just get players, man.
Not exactly.
Like,
not for what the Blazers are. Right, you're not trying to. I mean, listen. You know Chauncey well. Chauncey wants to win. I'm sure Chauncey would love to get Joel Embiid back for Damian Lillard. I'm sure, so they could contend next year. But that's not where the team is. Right, that's not where the Blazers are. The Blazers are in asset collection mode.
That team isn't going to compete with Joel Embiid. Is being in the same spot of being Damian Lillard.
Totally.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
Do you think someone screwed up in this situation? Like, was Damian wronged by the Blazers? Because Joe Cronin said at his press conference in Vegas that he feels like he failed.
But it goes back deeper than Cronin. Cronin admitted he did, and I respect that. I hear Dame really wanted a stronger, not so much starting 5, but stronger bench. Like a more veteran-laden, talented bench that when they got to the second 5 could really take off. And I think that brought him disappointment more than anything and wanted him out. You know, there was a March 22nd, your season's over with, you're 5 games out. And maybe it was a long shot that they get to the play-in, but what if they did? And you see what happened with the Lakers and you see what happened with Miami. Yeah. And I don't think that hit well once the playoffs started. And, but I think it's deeper than Cronin. It was the guy that was there before, doing a lot of chest bumping and beating his chest, but not putting the right people around him. He didn't. Trading CJ stole something out of his heart, from Blazers trading CJ as well. But it just like when you saw the arms race, the Warriors get players, the Lakers get players, the Clippers get players, right? In the West, Dallas goes and gets Kyrie, like Phoenix loads up. There was no loading up in Portland. And, you got to trade, obviously. I mean, Jeremy Grant's a very good player, don't get me wrong. But they just never, in the arms race of the West, they they basically all just had a pistol when everybody else was having cannons, right? Just never could put that team around him. And then now he's 33.
Do you think so what's the end game here? You think he goes to Miami? Does it happen before training camp?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If it doesn't, I'm curious what because I've talked to this a lot with a lot of people, and I've tried to nail this down.
If it doesn't, you'll see me in Oregon during training camp. You'll see me on media day.
Will Damian Lillard be in camp?
Are we going to go to Cafe Dewberry for breakfast before?
Dewberry's just down the street from my house. We can go for sure. Does Dame come to Blazers training camp, or do the Blazers say stay home while we work this out? What is the best way to navigate that for those two sides if Dame is still on the roster at the start of camp?
I don't think we're going to do breakfast that time. We'll do breakfast another time.
Okay, I look forward to the.
It's my
down the road.
I'm not saying that's my prediction. I'm gonna stick with
it. You covered Chauncey, basically his whole career, right?
Yeah.
No, what do you think of?
Let me tell you. Can I tell you a Chauncey Billups story?
Yeah, go for it.
No, Chauncey's a friend. I love Chauncey. Okay, we're not supposed to say these things, right? But he's like a brother to me.
You're in the Hall of Fame.
I lived in Denver. I lived in Denver from '99 to 2007. That time when I first started covering the Nuggets, Chauncey was on the team. If you go look at it, it was a very interesting trade. Chauncey was a throw-in to the Orlando Magic. It was him. Ron Mercer was in a contract dispute, and a guy named Johnny Taylor, and they got Tariq Abdul-Wahad and Chris Gatling back, right? Chauncey never even played for Orlando. Doc Rivers was the coach of the team, and they just let him become a free agent. That next summer, we had a mutual friend by the name of Matisse Moore, who I played with in junior college at Foothill College in the Bay. We go to New Orleans for the Essence Music Festival. The young Ty Lue just won a championship. It's 2000. We're hanging out. Lil Wayne comes by. Yo, T. Lue. Chauncey's with us. Like, we're walking on Bourbon Street, right? Nobody said nothing to Chauncey. Not a word. I remember we even went to my cousin's house for a barbecue. T. Lue wasn't with us, but Chauncey was with us. My cousin didn't recognize him, and he was giving us this little lecture about if we work hard, we could get a pool with a backyard. Oh, I'd never forget that. So I asked Chauncey about that. We laugh at that. Like, you know, he didn't recognize him. He just thought he was some young dude. And I just remember him being in a weird spot and being conflicted and being like fearful that he was going to be out of the NBA. Then the Minnesota thing, he's like, I got this offer from Minnesota. I think I'm going to go there and, I'm going to back up Terrell Brandon, who's certainly familiar with you guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a spark. That's what started it, and eventually ended up with him going to Detroit. And I'll tell you this, if you look in my room, if you see me on NBA Today, I got a zillion bobbleheads, right? I hope Chauncey said it's the only bobblehead I've ever purchased. and it's because, man, like, I always remember that conversation. I always remember that, like, look in his eye of concern. And how do you go from that to a champion and a finals MVP? Incredible. Absolutely incredible story. Like, he's somebody, and it needs to do a documentary on his story, because he really thought his career was hanging on a thread. And so for him to figure it out, and I believe he'll make the Hall of Fame next year. I think he'll be in next year's class for sure. So what was your question?
Well, I mean,
but that's my guy, man. He's an amazing person. He don't drink, he don't smoke. He's a good human being. All right. They got some good wine in Oregon, man, and he's not partaking in any of it.
I aspire to ask questions that yield answers as good as that one, so I don't even know what my question was, but credit to me for asking it. I did want to ask about Chauncey. This Blazers coaching
Have
job
patience with him, Portland. Like
That's my question.
I mean, you only can coach what you can coach. Can John Wooden coach that team to something better? Like, be real about who you are. Be real about your roster. And I think that's the problem is, we're not winning. Can't make tuna with sardines. Right? You can't make a tuna sandwich with sardines. Like, come on, man. Like, be real about your roster. And then you bring somebody else in, and then they got to start from scratch. There is nobody – I don't think there's anybody in the NBA, actually, that is better for Scoot than Chauncey. Because while Scoot is certainly a much better athlete, they're very similar players. And to get that tutelage at this age from a future Hall of Famer, from a finals MVP, from one of the greatest point guards ever played a game, to have that influence. And I'll tell you this about Scoot. He ain't that young kid that don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a couple pieces on him. Please check him out. You'll enjoy him because of him, not because of me. He's going to listen and take everything and squeeze him and ask him about playing in the finals and ask him about playing against this person and that person and John Stockton and Gary Payton. Like, he wants that information. He's not an arrogant kid. He wants to be magnificent. And to have Chauncey as his teacher on a daily basis is when Dame is gone, like, they'll be in good hands with him. Like, buy that 00 jersey, or just take your Dame jersey and add a 0 to the right side of the 0 you have now. Put some tape over the last name and write it over.
That's the economy version.
But this kid is special, and yeah, this kid is special, and Chauncey's going to make sure he becomes special.
Mark, before we go, there's two key topics that we have to talk about. I need to talk to you about San Jose State, Oregon State, Sunday in your stomping grounds. We just watched the Spartans.
I got another 10 minutes, man. Unless you guys got an expiration time on this thing.
We do not. I just saw the Spartans give USC everything it could handle for about a half at the Coliseum.
No, more like 3.5. 3.5. 3.5.
What's the Marc Spears? What's the Marc Spears scouting report on this San Jose State team that I think people are sleeping on? Gone to bowl games the last two out of the last 3 years. Really good quarterback. Yeah. How scared should the Beavers be?
You know what's scary about it, and this is said with all due respect to Oregon State, is that we played already. We got the kinks out. I have several degrees. Also, you see me post a lot about LSU. I got my master's from LSU. My family's from Louisiana, so I root for LSU and go to LSU stuff as well. And people say, well, how can you do both? I'm like, I got degrees from both. But anyways, having played already, we got the kinks out. Mm-hmm. Then we go home. And I mentioned LSU because last year LSU lost to Florida State in the first game, and I think we'll make amends this weekend. And I think part of it was because Florida State had played the week before and got a lot of the kinks out and got the nervousness out. And so first games, I think, are hard. And we played a really high-level first game and competed with USC until, like, you can't make mistakes against USC.
Right.
But for about 3.5 quarters, we were in it until that lucky play when, the Heisman winner drops the ball, fumbles it, picks it up, and it's Sandlot, right? And then they ran back a kick, and then, like, you can't make mistakes, and they had a lucky play, like, and boom, like lightning in a bottle. But they had to fight for it. And, yeah, I know Oregon State's coming in with their ranking. I look forward to them playing in the Mountain West Conference, so I'll see you more.
You're gonna hurt a lot of hearts.
That's my hope. That's my hope, man. I look forward to going to a game at Oregon State for the first time. That's my hope, is that y'all. I know you guys are rolling your eyes and probably turn it off now. But anyways, no, I just think that it's going to be a great game. Great for San Jose State. There's a reconfigured suite situation behind which will be Oregon State's bench. So I actually got a suite this season behind Oregon State's bench. And guess who's in my suite? Guess who's coming?
Chauncey Billups.
To give you a little secret. No. Who's the greatest basketball player in Oregon State history?
Gary Payton, GP, the glove.
You got to come by, man. GP's in the suite. I'm trying to give you your column, brother. I'm trying to make it easy for you. You want to just come and hang out with us during the game?
Dear listener, this is how the sausage is made. On Monday morning when you pick up the Oregonian and you read a column about Gary Payton at the San Jose State game, this is the origins of that column. Mark, you played basketball at San Jose State. Hey, man,
you want me to send you a ticket so you can come by? Because it's a sweet situation. So you can't just walk in there. You have an
all-access pass. We'll talk more offline.
No, you'll have your media pass, but yeah, I got you.
You played basketball at San Jose State. You were also a student journalist. Those things don't always
I redshirted at San Jose State. I redshirted, had a knee injury. But go ahead. There's more to the story, but we don't have time.
You're also a student journalist.
You Google it. There's a lot that was going on there, but yes.
What happened? How did those two things end up connecting?
How did what?
Being a student journalist and also on the basketball team. Oh, how did being a student journalist?
No, I knew I wanted to be a sports writer since seventh grade. I knew I wanted to be a sports writer since seventh grade. We had a great career day when I was at Silverdale Junior High in San Jose, where actually a guy from the Warriors came. I went to listen to him. He asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I said, I want to play for y'all. And he said, well, what if you can't? What if you're hurt? What if you don't make it? So I don't know. And he gave me some great advice, which I hope any listener gives to their kids. Like, if you can combine what you love most in life with what you do best in school, you'll find a job you're happy with every day. And I love sports and I could write. So I decided in the seventh grade I wanted to be a sports writer. Sent a letter to Mark Purdy from the San Jose Mercury News, and he gave me the cheat code from seventh grade through college to be a sports writer. And so I knew that since seventh grade, and basically everything he told me to do, whether it was write for the school paper or get typing classes, all the typing classes in high school, or get as many internships as possible in college, I followed to a T. So I definitely wasn't a first round pick of any sort in basketball. I did perhaps had an opportunity to maybe play in Mexico after my basketball career was done, but I felt like a first round pick in terms of journalism because I was just ahead of everybody. And, my first job, a lot of people talk about Gowdy Award, getting that, and it included, covering the NBA for 24 years, but I also covered Nolan Richardson in my first job, covered the University of Arkansas's football and basketball team. I also covered Cal State Northridge football and basketball, but I also covered Kentucky, Tubby Smith, and I covered the Hall of Famer Denny Crum too with University of Louisville, all within my first 4 years. So I covered major college basketball with Kentucky and Arkansas and Louisville. And so that's part of my basketball journey as well.
Mark, you've branched out of sports and the NBA with this project on Hulu called The Conversations Project. It's it's inspired by the Harlem Renaissance Salon, and you guys get these big groups of really thoughtful people together over wine, over food. The wine would disqualify Chauncey Billups from ever appearing on an episode. But where did this come from?
No, that's not true, because we had Natari Naughton from Power, and she was pregnant, so she just drank juice. Like there were some people that didn't drink wine, and we also had all the wine that we had, which is, I know Oregonians are interested in wine. We're all black-owned wines, including Andre Mack. I think he was the lone one from Oregon that we had this season. So his wines, and he had a Pinot called OPP, Other People's Pinot, which was great. But go ahead. Let me let you finish.
Well, just the project, you guys really dive headfirst into really complicated subjects, really, things that people maybe have a hard time talking about. There's a great conversation about reparations that, where it's not a binary, are reparations good, bad conversation, but a lot of really strong perspective on on what it would mean, who pays for it, who gets paid, and they just, and I just wonder what inspired you and your other co-hosts to go down this road and start this project, obviously with the support of Andscape, but to push some of these conversations forward. Where'd that come from?
Well, I think a big part of it was like, and I'm a big fan of 3 movies in particular. My favorite movie of all time is Mo Better Blues. Also, Boomerang and Love Jones. And the common denominator between the 3 movies is they show Black excellence in each of the movie. Really educated, cool Black people that you want to hang out with, that are have amazing jobs and are doing like really dope things. And I'm tired of the shows of us selling drugs or in the crime world or reality shows where we're just throwing drinks on each other and, or just seeing us as athletes or entertainers. Like we're all often seen in the negative light. I would say Blacks, African Americans are seen in a negative light 9 out of 10 times. And, perception can also oftentimes be reality. And the reason why people like are racist towards or frightened of Black people is because of the visual they tend to see on television. So, I mean, I haven't watched The Wire because I get tired of seeing, and I need to tell some of my friends this because they have give me a hard time for it. I'm just tired of seeing us in these positions selling drugs and those kind of things. I don't hang out with no people that sell no damn drugs. I ain't hanging out with nobody in the crime world. This has never been a part of my life. And when I do go to dinner with folks that I'm close to, and if it's, we have real conversations. I'm not talking about Dame every dinner. We're talking about the world. We're talking about life. So if you watch this show, these are the typical conversations that we do have, and they're deep. And I wanted not just Black people, but people of all colors. Like, I want your kids to watch it and say, oh, wow, there's a Black guy that's an astronaut. There's a Black woman that's a financial advisor. There's this Black man is a educator, and he's really, really interesting. He's really, really has some depth. Yes, there's comedians and actors and actresses and musicians, but there's other people, a different ilk, business folks and stuff on the show. Yeah. And so when people watch it, like, they probably assume this is just for Black people to watch because it's a Black iron sharpens iron laden show. No, man, everybody needs to watch that. Yeah. There's a lot of, there's many more brilliant Black folks out there doing amazing things that are being given credit for. So I think through the course of this thing, especially for folks that aren't Black, you're going to learn so much about the African American community, even about the international community, the Caribbean. The chef on the show, he's actually a Jamaican London. And I think through the course of it, you'll wish you were at dinner with us. You'll fall in love with the food that's there. But you'll also like laugh with us, cry with us, get angry with us, understand like what it's like in a lot of ways to be Black in America, but in a very educated and fun way. And so I hope that every person listening like gives this a chance, gives it an opportunity. I heard it was the most searched thing on Hulu yesterday. So that was good news to my ear. We're hopeful to have a second season and a third season and continue to have a conversation of the popular person, but also the person that you may not know that like, oh, wow, they're interesting. They're smart. Like, so this is different. Everybody keeps telling me I'm very grateful to have this opportunity. Like, I'm a sports writer who has a television show that ain't got nothing to do with sports. And we had one sports guest all 6 episodes, Solomon Thomas from the Jets, and that was it. So, like, Bill, we're so much deeper than what we do, man. Like, and so to branch out, like, I just hope my friends support it. I got a lot of friends in the industry. I hope they give it a chance and support it and don't just look at it as a Black thing. And hopefully we're around for more depth and more conversation.
It's really cool, Mark, and congratulations to you guys. It's the Conversations Project on Hulu, a collection of fearless banter over some of the country's best food and wine is how they've branded it, and I couldn't agree more. Having watched a couple of those, so credit to you guys. And Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. I think you're going to be in for a long Sunday with the Beavers because I think the Beavers are really good.
Hey man, it's going to be an upset. I hear what you're saying, but it's going to be an upset. We've beaten ranked teams before.
That is true, and I think
come enjoy the good weather and the sunshine and all that. And I'm glad I'll just say this: I'm glad we got you guys first. And not
I think
later.
there is. Remember that. I think there is a lot of talk about Oregon State starting 4-0, 5-0, maybe being a real dark horse for the college football playoff. And I do agree. Do not overlook this week 1 game against San Jose State. So Marc Spears, you'll be there. I'll be there.
No, overlook it.
We'll keep this conversation going.
Overlook it. We want you to. We're easy.
All right, Mark.
It's
thanks
just,
so much.
It's a 2-1, right? Just come get your check. Go Spartans.
Marc Spears, senior NBA reporter for ESPN's Andscape, host of the Conversations Project on Hulu. Great piece on Damian Lillard last week that you need to read. Also has one on Ben Simmons. He's done so much in his career. You can go find it. If we'd listed everything Mark had done in his career, we wouldn't have had time for this great conversation. Marc Spears, thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.